Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine and enjoying a very pleasant summertime. Today I want to talk a bit about healing versus avoidance as a topic. Do you consider yourself as a healed person who has identified and unlearned destructive patterns and defenses? If so, why do you think so? What has happened given you this assumption? The argument or reason that you have become free of your unconscious defense mechanisms and not avoiding anymore. Because as you might know, healing is about, encountering and dealing with fear and all those unpleasant emotions which create your defenses and avoidance strategies. And the goal of such process is to obtain a feeling of integration, understanding, growth, self-development, safety, and closure. Many people assume that they are healing quickly or that they have already healed because they are not doing so-called bad or unacceptable things anymore, or because that they are not using the same old avoidance behaviors which they used to apply. And to them, this means healing. But the thing is that in many cases, it is not true. And many of us just think that we have healed and cannot see that we are just, using another, perhaps more sophisticated strategy to avoid. I have seen in my clinical practice that some people unconsciously are too afraid to admit and see their emotional complexes and wounds and just try to survive by using substitute, maybe a little more nuanced and complicated strategies. And this is mostly recognizable during the first phase, yet very important phase of therapy and change processes, where their genuine and active engagement and participation to feel, to see, to address and motivate themselves to resolve the emotional issues are much needed. At the beginning, many of them are, taking serious steps toward breakthrough and, knocking the defense walls down. But when things go further in the process and it demands a higher level of engagement and courage to really switch off the engine of their avoidance strategies, they take a pause and unconsciously go back to their familiar old patterns and responses. The whole thing is then still about avoidance and not healing, although their own perception will be that they are experiencing healing. And this is the case because they have gained somewhat insight and probably has managed to turn off some parts of their avoidances, but mostly their avoidance mechanisms have turned into new shapes and forms, or that even some totally new ones have emerged. And since many of used avoidance strategies are concealed and hidden by beautiful covers, such as working too much or doing much of a hobby or entertainment activities, or even engaging a lot in voluntary activities or sport and so on, the people get an idea of being done by therapy and literally getting healed. And the thing that usually happens during therapy work is that they might use, several known defense mechanisms when getting, for example, challenges of me to express their emotional experiences when we approach a threshold of breakthrough by, for example, thinking or reflecting instead of feeling inside their body, or changing the topic of our conversation, or even by giving very vague and diffuse and complicated answers which are not fully representative of their emotional experiences by them. So these tactical temporary relief delivery mechanisms will just postpone emerging the real healing moments around which the whole therapy revolve. Of course, sometimes we can come to some points which avoidance is inevitably a normal part of the process, or even is essential and encouraged, like situations where we can get overwhelmed and react with big reactions such as panic or fainting, especially during the beginning phase of healing process, which sense of safety and stabilization and integration is not established yet. But the point is that avoidance on its own is not healing. You cannot, for example, seek help for your anxiety or depression problem and then do something new or use new strategies following advice from your doctor or your therapist without doing something deeper with underpinnings, the roots of your problems. Because you have to have both advices and new strategies and a new insight and emotional experience. Both of them are very essential. These two should work and come along together, otherwise you are wasting your resources on time and energy, because the problem with its roots are still there, but its appearance is perhaps changed, or the old form of it is hidden now. For example, you have learned to breathe better and more efficiently, but you will anyway get tensed and anxious in social situations, although perhaps your reactions, intensity is not that high as before, because you're still avoiding your fear, for example, fear of being not good enough compared to other people, which is a problem at a deeper level. And to overcome such a fear, for not be, for example, valuable or good enough, then you have to resolve this complex through therapy and really face this fear, right? I remember that my client said to me that he has decided to postpone conversation with his father to another occasion, despite this was part of our deal and our agreement plan prior to the course of treatment. And this, his excuse was that he feels that he has no need, he has no reason to do that because he is doing fine now, and he does not need to talk with him. That will be just unnecessary. He had daddy issue and very absent relationship with his dad during childhood, and we came to the conclusion that going no contact will not, in this case, be good for him. But my impression was that this is absolutely an avoidance, a fear, because he had just an illusion of thorough healing, and wanted also to interrupt therapy sessions because his feeling was that he was much better than before, and he did that, although I discouraged him to not doing that. But after a while, about 6 to 7 months later, he was there in my therapy room again. So he did not have a fully accomplished healing experience yet, but possibly a limited growth and boost in motivation and hope. So you see, avoidance is just a coping strategy and has the power to shift its appearance and fueling channels all the time. Our minds love to use avoidance, because for our nervous system, the most important thing is to survive. And back in the time, we survived by avoiding what we were scared of, what we made us unsafe and uncertain. So there is a wisdom in it. Another apparently healing sign, which is in reality a typical avoidance strategy, is being toxically positive. This one is so common. Many of us, tend strongly to exclusively focus on the positive, bright, and hopeful sides of a situation and following positive feelings. And this can be dangerous because it can, minimize our abilities to recognize and deal with unpleasant feelings and pain and discomfort. Someone may also be only, concentrated to get over it and fix it and, finish the therapy to go ahead with his life as soon as possible. I have met many of such people in therapy sessions. They often ask questions about, length of the therapy and what they really should do to accelerate the process, because they feel that they are so eager and restless and willing to reach that big therapy goal soon. And I understand it, that people need to feel the good and pleasant feelings of success and self-efficacy, but sometimes this rush will hinder fulfilling a good and overarching, healing experience for the person. This is a process of rebirthing, understanding and embracing your psychological and soul parts again, and it takes time. Or another avoidance strategy can be eliminating people or everyone from your social circle who you perceive as toxic or rude or whatever. So instead of working through relationships and trying to rebuild the relationships which have still potential for mutual trust and understanding and support, many will prefer to cut people out, and then they will call this a wise decision due to a true healing experience. Many may use inappropriate communication strategies such as being invasive in their words and attitudes and passive aggressive or even violent, instead of taking the job of learning to communicate in a constructive and efficient way. And then they will call it their own way of protecting their boundaries, because they have understood that it is very important to protect boundaries. This is actually, misusing psychology and rely on avoidance mechanisms. Again, one of the significant parts of healing begins with taking responsibility and being accountable. You do not need to be positive all the way. It is okay to sit with discomfort. That is part of our lives. If we ignore the pain, it will turn back harshly. So identifying what actually we are scared of, what our fear and so our need for having control is about, is an essential part of healing journey. We deserve to be ourselves and connection with our true selves and values without being self-critical and feeling shameful for who we are. The goal is to expand the tolerance capacity to endure and tolerate pain and discomfort. So the things and situations that trigger you and your fear-based avoidance strategies are port to healing areas. Maybe you need a hand to go through this path, but regardless of your choice to how to face your fear, it is important to realize that we need to work constantly to grow and cannot always sweeping the crumbs under the rugs. We cannot isolate ourselves in our fear caves and create an elusive but exclusive world of perfect lives with lots of mechanisms driven by fear and need for control and protection. We deserve a better life, and authentic and fearless one, actually. I hope that these reflections have given you a motivation to go through your controlling and avoiding strategies to see if you have a long way to heal or you are already there. Please stay in touch and share this video with others. Take care. Thank you. Bye.